understand, is your community conducive to your insecurities or not? Do you have to hide who you really are? If you're constantly hiding who you really are, those insecurities are going to get perpetuated. They're going to get worse.
I went from so scared I can't do this assignment freshman in high school, completely red-faced, insecure, to doing something about it. My point is, insecurity can be transformed into power if you do something about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level University weekly Meetup Monday. Today, for week number 59, how to overcome your insecurities. So before we get into it, Alan is going to do a little framing because, as you know, at Next Level U, we try to make changes very quickly, and we're always trying to get to the next level ourselves so we can help you get to the next level, and we have made some changes to the weekly Meetup.
Okay, so the changes that we've made are we used to do a Zoom room after this for the last 20 minutes to the top of the hour. So what we're going to change is actually we're going to stay in this room, and we're going to give a 40-minute keynote, and then the last 20 minutes, Kevin and I will stay here and answer any questions that you have. So wherever you're watching this, you can comment questions, and Amy will ask us during that 20-minute portion, and that's going to actually be repurposed as a podcast episode. That we will keep your questions anonymous, though, just so you know. But if you've ever wanted to be on an NLU podcast episode, technically this is a way to do that. And Amy will read the questions, we'll answer them, and that will be posted every Thursday at noon. So as of right now, it's 6:03. We have 57 minutes because we're going to the top of the hour. Technically, we have 36 minutes now because it just changed to 4. 36-minute keynote. The last 20 minutes will be for Q&A, and I think that's everything.
Did we miss anything? I don't think we did.
I think we're good.
All right. So if you have been following Alan and I for a while, you may have seen Alan and I on David Meltzer's LinkedIn Live. You may have seen us on Evan Carmichael's Instagram Live. You may have seen us interviewing Dean Graziosi. You may have seen a lot of these things. What I know people don't see is the behind the scenes of that. I am genuinely terrified before every call with Dave Meltzer, and I've been able to use that fear and the insecurity of not being smart enough to really help me get to the next level. So you have two options when you have an insecurity. And at the end of the day, an insecurity is something that you don't like about yourself, or it gives you fear or anxiety about yourself. It's something that you'd want to change, something you're afraid other people are going to figure out. Alan and I wrote this on the board. Insecurities are things that we all have, but we either pretend we don't have them or we refuse to talk about them. Okay? For me, I didn't go to college. I wasn't very good in high school. I've never been an academic. So not being smart enough has always been an insecurity for me, especially in this line of work. When Alan went to WPI and is a very somewhat, I'd say pretty smart. He's pretty smart.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. And we happen to, David Meltzer is a genuine genius. So when we get on these LinkedIn Lives and there's people watching expecting us to bring value to Dave, I get a little bit insecure. But you have two options. You can either run from your insecurity or you can lean into it. A lot of people who are very successful also dealt with heavy insecurities. But the people who hide from them, the people who shell up, the people who say, because of this, I can't do this, those aren't the people who really get to the next level. If you have an insecurity, number one, become aware of what it is. Okay, for me, I don't feel smart enough. In certain rooms, I don't feel smart enough. Okay? That's my awareness. There it is. My responsibility to that is understanding that, okay, if I want to be successful with Alan, I have to do this. I have to get to the next level. I have to get smarter. I have to learn more. Okay? And then my commitment is I will be the smartest version of myself. When we're in these rooms with Dave and Evan, I want to make sure that I can bring value. I want to make sure that I can help our listeners. Right? We have two options. You either run from your insecurities or you lean into them. And I can guarantee you the people who leaned into them might have had the same insecurities as you. Maybe they were afraid of speaking. Maybe they were afraid of podcasting. Maybe they were afraid of looking bad on social media, taking videos of themselves. We all have very similar insecurities. The people who make it are the people who face them. And you can face them too. Will it be easy? No. But it will be worth it for sure. I know Alan and I have faced a lot of ours, so.
I think that your personal development is actually a byproduct of how much you've faced and overcome your insecurities. Fear is not a stoplight. It's actually a green light a lot of times, because you can either let it control you or you can let it get you excited for the challenge. And so when you get nervous before that job interview, do you show up anyway? Or when you get nervous before that first date, do you show up anyway? We understand this concept that we have to overcome our insecurities in order to achieve our dreams. And I think that that's part of why we have dreams is the dreams force us to become more of our true potential through the adversity, through the fear, through the insecurity, rather than kind of around it or sidestepping it or hiding from it or avoiding it. And like Kevin said, the first thing to understand about insecurity is that everyone has them. Everyone has them. An insecurity is a belief about oneself. And everyone has them. If you have empowering beliefs, you also have limiting beliefs. And the problem with belief is a lot of it is subconscious. So, for example, let's say you were in high school and you got laughed at for asking a dumb question. I've been there. What if you decide that that means you're dumb? Now you have an insecurity of being laughed at for or being found out that you're dumb, quote unquote, for the rest of your life. So then you never ask questions anymore, which then perpetuates not being as smart as the person who asks questions. So I think the first thing to understand, everyone has insecurities. Everybody. And the people who are pretending they don't are full of it. They maybe have overcome their insecurities more, and I think that's kind of what we do in life. I think, I have certain insecurities at 32 that are lesser of an insecurity than at 16. Before Kevin and I got on here, we had a lot of reminiscing about high school, and I realized, and he actually said this to me, he said, we don't realize how much those things actually matter until later in life. Like, what did you decide about yourself in high school? Were you the nerd? Were you the jock? Were you the pretty boy or the pretty girl? What you decided about yourself subconsciously back then, based on your insecurities, is having a major, major impact. So the other thing that I want to talk about quickly, Kev basically said we all have insecurities, and these are things we believe about ourselves, but we don't talk about it. It's almost like something we're subconsciously avoiding, okay? If I don't know much about cars and you're passionate about cars, I might be insecure about that conversation, okay? It can be something as simple as that. But the problem is that insecurity keeps us from learning, keeps us from getting better. Because what are the chances I'm going to get better at cars if I never talk about it because I'm avoiding it, right? And so they perpetuate. And so I'll never forget, we were at a Brendan Burchard event. This was in 2020, I believe, or the tail end of 2019, actually, before COVID. So yeah, tail end of 2019. We were in San Diego, and Natalie Hodson stepped on stage. For those of you who don't know Natalie, she's become a friend, did a little coaching with her behind the scenes, but she talks a lot about shame and vulnerability. And she was on stage, and she showed statistics. She said, in America specifically, the number one form of shame for men, statistically speaking, is lack of success, finances. The number one form of shame for females in America specifically is body image. What a coincidence, right? So the very first point here is insecurities are made up. Why is it that women have so many challenges with body image and men have so many challenges with success? Because society has bombarded us with a lot of men who have nice cars and mansions and boats and Benzes, and there's a lot of our society that also showcases these perfect model bodies on movies and magazines that make us all feel inadequate and feel insecure. And I'll never forget being back in high school, and for those of you who don't know, I hit puberty very, very late. I still look young to this day. Now imagine me at 14 years old in high school, and I'm watching movies with different guys who are actually 32, the actors are actually 32, and I'm wondering why I don't look like that. Right? We all have those kinds of insecurities. Are we facing them, and are we overcoming them? And what are we determining we're going to do about it? That's what this is about today.
Did you have a bowl cut at 14?
Not at 14.
When did you get rid of it?
7th grade, I believe.
7th grade. I remember I was in the bowl cut group.
Well, You remember Little Giants?
Of course I
the
remember
blonde
Little
kid?
Giants.
Yeah.
The what is it? Annexation of Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
Come on, man. How dare you? So what Alan was saying makes a ton of sense talking about high school. Like when we're in high school, everything seems like it matters so very much. But then a couple years later, you reflect and it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Now we graduated in 07. Yeah. My goodness, that was a while ago.
12 years ago. Wait.
14
years
14 years ago. That's a long time. Now we're reflecting and we're seeing things completely differently. And we're seeing, okay, so reflecting back on the people that we went to high school with, it's like, okay, Alan and I were pretty insecure in high school. Like, I'm 5'5" now. I was way smaller in high school. I got picked on a little bit, not a lot. But how much of that quiet, shy, doesn't want to be the center of attention Kevin came from high school? How many of my insecurities that I still deal with today came from high school? Right? How many came from your upbringing? Maybe you had an older sibling who made you feel bad. Maybe your mom or your dad spoke down to you and said you were stupid if you asked questions. Like, understand that. One of the things we're going to be talking about throughout this is awareness. Understand why you're insecure about certain things, because you can't change what you're not aware of. So, I have a little statistic. Very rarely do I have stats, but we're going to do stats for this.
I like it.
So before this, Alan and I looked up a stat, and it said 98% of men watch porn. But there's a running joke, like you'll hear 98% of men watch porn, but you'll never find two guys in the same room who do, because a lot of people don't talk about it, right? That is a huge insecurity for people. So Alan and I were sitting in New York with Tori Leto, and we were going deep on insecurities and fears and shame. And I said, yeah, Tori, one of the things I dealt with was porn addiction. And that's something I battled for a long time. And I remember Alan saying after, I can't believe you talked about that. And I was like, why? He's like, well, most people don't talk about that. They wouldn't say that. And I said, yeah, I mean,
took a lot of courage.
I appreciate that. It's something that I owned. I put out there. I didn't get any negative feedback. So it's something I felt comfortable talking about. Now, understand this. You're not alone. With whatever your insecurity is, you're not alone. One of the reasons I talked about having a porn addiction, and I do often, is because I've had people reach out. I'm working with a client right now who that's one of the things he wants to change. He has a porn addiction and he wants to get rid of it, right? If I didn't have the courage to put that out there, I wouldn't be able to help this person. There are people, like numerous amounts of people, who have the same insecurity as you. Maybe it's looking bad in a picture. Again, whatever your insecurity is, you're not alone. But what happens when you talk about it is you open up the line of communication with other people. Okay? If when I said that, there were people out there that said, oh, same, me too. Like, I feel that way too. And they felt comfortable reaching out to me. So that thing that seemed like an insecurity actually became a connection point. Then I can impact those people. Right? Then they know I'm just like them. And it just opens a line of communication. It opens a line of vulnerability. And I think that it's one of those things that you can only run from for so long. It's the monster that we put in the closet that we hope never gets out. And the fact that we don't want it to get out will keep it there, which means it's going to be a fear forever. Right? Like, it's the Band-Aid. You just got to pull it off. You got to post that social media pic. You got to get on your story. You got to have that conversation. You got to try on the bathing suit, whatever it is. Like, it won't go away unless you make it. And I guess early on in this journey, I'm a little guilty of this. I thought a lot of my insecurities would go away as I got more successful and as we got more listens and as we had more clients, and that just isn't the case. Insecurities, fears, that inner stuff, you have to get rid of that. Nothing on the outside can do that for you. You got to do it for yourself.
So one of the things that I try to teach my clients that I find so difficult to help them understand is that being more successful actually makes your life more challenging. It gets easier in certain regards because you have maybe more financial success, or you have, a better intimate relationship, or maybe you're healthier. But especially in business, when the business grows, your life doesn't get easier. It gets more challenging because it amplifies anything that is not dialed in. And I'll give you an example. When you're squatting 500 pounds, if you have a knee injury, it's going to be exacerbated way more with 500 pounds than with 100. And so, Kev, I'm just going to ask you live, what did you believe before regarding your insecurities going away versus now? Because you can work on them and they'll get better. but they're not going to get better just with results, right? So can you go deeper on that?
I thought that my insecurities were from, I mean, I'm guilty of this. In my story, I always say, like, when I got my heart broken, the first thing I said was, I'm going to make the most money I've ever made this entire year, because I thought it was going to make it go away, and then I made the money and it didn't fix anything.
Right.
So I think, me specifically, I thought external things would fix the internal. I thought having a nice car, like, what is there to be insecure about when you have a nice car? That was the way I thought.
Everything without a nice
Everything without a nice car.
Right.
And
Everything except for not having a nice car.
Everything, because what happens when you're not in the car?
Right.
Like, what happens when you're lying down to go to sleep at night?
Right.
So for me, I'm very guilty of saying, like, okay, when I get this, I'll feel a certain way. When I get this need, this hole, this void will go away. I've done that with clients before of, like, what do you want? I want this. Why do you want it? Because this goes away. There's the problem. It doesn't go away. It won't go away.
Right.
Until you make it. And I think it's, okay, if you're afraid of public speaking, the best thing you could possibly do is start public speaking.
Right.
Or be afraid of it forever.
Right.
That's it. It's a dark room. Either you're willing to look into it and at least take a step in, or you're not. And it's the same with insecurities. It's the same. I forget that, like, most people aren't in front of the camera all the time. Okay, great example. I'm getting ready to leave today, and Taryn was helping me comb my hair because in the back it's getting a little wild. And I have a zit right here on my forehead. And she's like, do you want me to take care of that thing? She said something. I don't remember the word. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I can, like, put makeup on it. I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not the type to run from that sort of thing. Like, I'm on camera all the time. I don't think about it. But imagine if I just said, yeah, honestly, I need something to cover it up. Like, I wouldn't be getting out of my comfort zone. I wouldn't be learning. I wouldn't be growing. It's like having training wheels on.
Right.
You'd never learn to ride a bike if you left the training wheels on.
Right.
So another thing, another quick point is, like, this is why if you don't like your body, there's two things you can do. You can try to improve it, or you can find something that makes you look better.
Right.
There's these T-shirts I keep seeing getting advertised on Facebook, and the headline is, it hides my beer belly. And it's like, okay, there's one way to go about it, but if that's your insecurity, we have to decide what you're willing to do about it, because it's not going to go away, and you can't Band-Aid the problem forever. If you try to Band-Aid the problem forever, it's going to bleed out eventually. It's going to get on your clothes. It's going to get on the people around you, and then it's going to be not too late, but you've wasted so much time.
So I have a story that...
Did that answer the question?
It did. And then some. And then some. I have a story that I've never told publicly. I believe. So, in 7th and 8th grade, everybody else kind of started hitting puberty, and I hadn't. I've already mentioned that part. When I was a freshman in high school, there was a teacher called Mr. Parcells, who was a history teacher. And one of his big things was, you're going to have to overcome your fear of public speaking in this class. I used to be called the red-faced social butterfly. I used to get all red and weird. And speaking in front of a classroom made me the most anxious ever of all time. Unbelievably anxious. And it's interesting, in hindsight, that's what I'm doing for a living. But I remember being petrified because I was insecure, super insecure. I actually went to a hypnotist who now, in hindsight, I've actually studied the neuroscience of this, was basically just downloading affirmations into my subconscious mind. And I have this little tape that I used to listen to before bed, and it used to associate public speaking with things I loved, like snowboarding or like swimming or all these other things that I was good at. Basically, now I understand all she was doing was connecting what my brain links that I'm good at with public speaking. Fast forward 10 years later, more than 10 years later, now that I realize that we graduated
you are?
in 2007, yeah. So 12 years later, Mr. Parcells hires me to come speak at Medway High School to a group of high school athletes. And I went from so scared I can't do this assignment freshman in high school, completely red-faced, insecure, to doing something about it. My point is, insecurity can be transformed into power if you do something about it. So I'm insecure about not being able to public speak. I found a resource. Thankfully, my mom took me to this resource of hypnotherapy. And through hypnotherapy, I became a public speaker. And I actually believe this is my gift. Okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest issues for our listeners that we've seen is not everybody has people in their corner trying to lift them to the next level, and even the people who are trying to help don't always know how.
That's why Kevin and I created Next Level Group Coaching. It's a 3-month program on teams of 10 with all people committed to achieving their goals. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
And we only take 10 people at a time, so make sure you get in quick.
10 years later, 12 years later, Mr. Parcells hires me to come speak at Medway High School to his group of high school athletes. And I got to tell that story, not the story that I told you about hypnosis, but the story that I told about how scared I used to be in his classroom. And I used to hate the fact that he requires public speaking. And now here I am being hired by that very same man. He's an athletic director now, 10, 12 years later. And so that's powerful. You can take something you're insecure about and use it as motivation to get better. And if you do that, maybe 10, 12, 15 years from now, maybe 2 years from now, you're going to be actually doing that for a living.
Your community is super important too. And that we did an episode on that today about the power of a community. But, okay, imagine if you have an insecurity and you come to Alan and I and you say, hey, I'm insecure. This happened recently. A client of mine said, hey, I'm insecure about speaking. And I said, perfect. Next Level Live. Go do that. Like, it's the best place where you can possibly do that because a lot of people are insecure about getting in front of the camera. A lot of people are insecure about posting on social media, and that's something I'm helping a lot of people with. Understand, is your community conducive to your insecurities or not? Do you have to hide who you really are? If you're constantly hiding who you really are, those insecurities are going to get perpetuated. They're going to get worse. But you have to, do you have a point on vulnerability?
I do, but you can go ahead, man.
I want you to do it. I want you to do it first.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you describe it better than I do.
Right now?
Yeah, do it.
All right, so when I went back to this, I'll refer back to Natalie Hodson on stage. This wasn't what she said on stage, I don't think, but we've since interviewed her. She's come on the Meetup, and then I've coached her a little bit behind the scenes. She talks about this idea that, I think it was Brene Brown who made this popular, but the things that we're ashamed of, we hide from ourselves and from other people. And it's actually called the psychological immune system. It actually like hides it on purpose because facing it might be too painful. But vulnerability is the antidote. And what she described to me, Natalie Hodson did, is that when vulnerability increases, aka talking about what you're insecure about, shame actually decreases. And when shame decreases, now the fear decreases and you can actually overcome it. And that's really, really critical to understand. The antidote to being afraid of planes is getting on a plane.
Strong distance.
The antidote to being afraid of public speaking is to go public speak. Now, I'm not saying to go do a speech in front of 10,000 people. That would be trying to squat 500 pounds when you've never been in the gym. Not smart. You'll get injured. But what's that little next baby step? Right? And who is someone that can guide you? This is something I haven't talked about yet, and I'll just go over it briefly. Every single movie out there, and this will all connect, has 4 main roles. They have a villain, they have a victim, they have a hero, and they have a guide. I'll use Titanic because not only do we love that movie, but most people know that movie because it's one of the most popular movies of all time. Okay, so in Titanic, the villain is Cal, the really arrogant, rich one at the beginning who is trying to marry Rose. And then technically her mom a little bit too, but more so Cal. The victim is Rose, which is Kate Winslet's character in the movie. Okay? The guide is Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Jack. The victim goes to commit suicide on the back of the boat. We all remember that scene. So well done. Thank you, James Cameron. And the guide shows up and says, you don't want to do that. Like, I grew up in Wisconsin. It's not just going to be death. It's going to be a lot of pain first. Don't do that, right? Trying to convince her to come over the rail. And then all throughout that movie, and Rose even says it in the movie, he saved my life in ways that I've never been able to explain. You know, my heart's like an ocean, all that. And so every movie has a villain, a victim, a hero, and a guide. The moment that Kate Winslet's character became the hero and not the victim was the moment when she decided to come and meet him at the front of the boat with that scene we all remember when they first started to kiss. That's when she answered the call of, I'm not gonna get off this boat with Cal. I'm not gonna do this marriage I don't believe in. I'm not gonna live this life that everyone else wants me to live. I'm gonna be my own woman. That is all of us. You want to know why that movie touches our soul and our heart and our mind and our body? We get the chills watching it. I do. It's because we've all been the victim. We've all been the villain at times. Ego. Okay? We've all been the hero and we've all been the guide. And when it comes to overcoming your insecurities, that's what it is. Maybe a villain made you insecure and you made yourself a victim. It's time to be the hero and it's time to reach out to a guide. Right? It can be Kevin, it can be myself, it can be someone on the NLU team, it can be a book, it can be a mentor, it can be a TED Talk. You gotta overcome it. For me, it was hypnotherapy. Okay? I was the victim to insecurity because I got made fun of for not hitting puberty, and all the jock guys used to bully me, honestly, and I was insecure. So I was the victim. I became the hero the moment I decided to go find a guide, that hypnotherapy. Right? We're all going through that in cycles, and I think it's really important to understand that.
Speaking of movie references, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, one of my favorite movies ever, and if you've ever seen it, I'm sure you will attest. You've seen it, right? You've seen 8 Mile?
Oh, yeah.
8 Mile with Eminem. So the final scene when Eminem is in the rap battle, and he basically knows, okay, well, I get to go first, so this is my opportunity to use all of this person's ammunition against them. So he literally uses all of his insecurities. He uses all of the painful things this person was going to say. I live in a trailer park. I live with my mom. My girlfriend slept with somebody in your crew. My best friend just shot himself in the leg. Cheddar Bob, I believe his name was.
Cheddar Bob.
He literally uses, I'm broke, all of these things. He uses all of his insecurities as ammunition against the person that he's going against. So you can either get in front of your insecurities or you get under them. He got in front of them. He said, look, I'm just going to put this all out there. I'm going to put this all out there because I already know you're going to use it, and I already know everybody knows it, and that is the end of the movie, and he wins the rap battle, and now he's Eminem. That's because that's real life. That's how it works. But it's super important because, like, at the end of the day, 2 things. 1, nobody knows what you're insecure about, really, and nobody really cares that much. Like, Alan told me, I don't know, 6 months ago, he said, hey, my nose is a little crooked. I got my nose broken when I was playing basketball. And I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about, man? I've been hanging out with you for 3 years. I've never noticed that before. But we make our insecurities worse. Like, for me, like when I'm walking across a long room, I have to like do stuff with my hands. I don't know why. I just have to. Because it's like everybody's watching the way I walk. Are they really? Probably not. They probably have better things to do, like eat their dinner or talk to the person they're sitting across from. But in my mind, insecurity, they're watching me walk or opening doors that don't open. I've talked about that before. Huge insecurity of mine. Do I know why? Rejection. Yeah, it's a fear of rejection.
That's funny.
I don't. Oh, thank you.
No, I don't mean in a bad way.
No, I'm just teasing.
I appreciate you sharing all that.
And one of the reasons I talk about my insecurities so much is because I want to get over them, and I want to be able to joke about them. Because is it a huge deal? No, not really. Like, it's something I can get over. You just have to commit to doing it. Alan and I talk a lot about commitment. How committed? Okay, 2 things. I've been saying 2 things a lot. How committed are you to getting over them? How committed are you to hiding them? You could be committed to hiding them. There's a lot of ways you could go. A lot of ways. When I was a little kid, I had planter's warts on my toe. And I remember I would literally never show the bottom of my foot, ever. Like, no matter what. And then one day they fell off, and then I would do it. But, like, what if I just researched how to get rid of planter's warts?
Right.
That would probably solve the problem. So how committed are you to hiding them? How committed are you to getting over them? Because it's a process. Just like it's building confidence, it's building resilience, it's getting out of your comfort zone. But it won't happen by accident, and it won't happen once. It's not just going to happen one time where you talk about it, right? We have to be committed. We have to make it a habit. And then I wanted to go back to the community aspect when Alan was talking about vulnerability. One of my favorite quotes is, the level of your relationships is the level of the vulnerability in your relationships. So I'm convinced that most people have friendships, intimate relationships, and family relationships where they don't even know who you really are because you don't talk about it. You don't talk about what you're afraid of. You don't talk about what you really feel. Alan and I are blessed to know so many people behind the scenes, and we're privileged enough to know their real life and what they go through, that they actually tell us about their insecurities. And a lot of them we share. But that's because they can be vulnerable with us. So find people you can be vulnerable with. I think that'll help.
So what is therapy at the end of the day? I do believe there's a lot of neuroscience underneath it and a lot of value there. But I think at the end of the day, the main thing it is it's a safe place to talk about your insecurities. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have that friend who we can talk to about anything, and they make us feel safe to talk about anything. And I think that even in parenting, that's going to be critical. I know that I'm going to want my kids to feel safe to come to me, Emilia and I, to come to us. We talk about this, you know, ahead of time. We want to create a safe environment where if something happens, they don't have to be fearful of what they did wrong. Instead, they can come and we can be their guides. And so if you've ever been to therapy or you've ever confided and had a heart-to-heart with a friend, you always feel better after because you finally get the skeleton out of the closet and you look at it. And that's when you can solve it. You're never going to solve a problem that you don't identify and understand. And you're never going to understand a problem that you don't face, that you don't talk about. So this had to be probably 2 years into our podcast journey. Okay, so prior to this podcast, it was called the Hyperconscious Podcast.
Throwback.
And oh yeah. Change the way you think, change the way you live. And prior to Kevin and I getting together, I worked in corporate. And I remember I went, job hopped in corporate a lot, and I made a lot of money in a very short amount of time. And, I started off around 65, and I bumped up and up and up and up and up. Eventually, I got and made a lot of money in 2014. I paid off all of my school debt. I think it was like $84,000 in 1 year. I just saved, and earned, and just paid off all my debt. I wanted to be financially free. And I had a big nest egg. When Kevin and I first kind of reconvened, I had a huge nest egg. I had probably like $150,000 in the bank.
I thought he was just hanging out, getting Chipotle, hanging out by the lake. I was like, look, I'm going to sign up for that. And he hoodwinked me.
Yeah.
Here we are, years later.
So I was not insecure about money. Go figure. I had a lot of it, at least what I perceived as a lot back then. My reference point has changed since then. But I remember 2.5, maybe 3 years into this journey of Kevin and I podcasting, I did a lot of investing in the podcast and not a whole lot of earning. Okay? Eventually, it got to a place where I was running out of money. And I didn't want to liquidate my investments, my stocks and stuff, but I had to do that, right? Insecure. Eventually, I'm literally at a friend's mom's place, landscaping, doing her a favor, 4 hours of my time in the hot sun. You may have heard me tell this story. Helping her with her gardening. There was big, heavy rocks that she couldn't lift. And I needed some extra money. She needed help. Win-win. So 4 hours of my time for $100 cash. And keep in mind, during this, I have an electrical and computer engineering degree from WPI. I have my master's in business. My education was $250,000. Thankfully, I had scholarships and financial aid, so I admit that as well. But I'm landscaping on the side for 4 hours in the hot sun for an extra $100 just to put gas in my car, right? And we're supposed to be these super successful business owners, and I was so insecure about that, so insecure. And it was a really dark time, and Kevin and I went to the drawing board. We went, okay, what do we do? What are we going to do, right? We start reaching out to listeners, and we start getting clients. We started for free. We started coaching for free. Kevin coached Tiff for free. I coached Amy for free at the very beginning. And eventually we started charging, okay? And then it grew from there. And now we're very grateful to have a super successful business where our net revenue is 30 times what it was back then. But here's my point. Transform your insecurities into greatness. If I wasn't insecure about landscaping on the side for $100, would we have gone back to the drawing board? Would we now have 3 groups in group coaching of 30 people? And then between the two of us, we have almost 20 one-on-one clients, maybe more than that, honestly. Would we have a next level team of 11 people global? Right? See, if you're insecure about money, it's time for financial mastery. If you're insecure about fitness, about your body, it's time for fitness mastery. Everyone watching this right now, you have an opportunity. This is a resource. This is a guide. This is a solution to your insecurities. Next level you. How do you master health, wealth, and love? But if you're not insecure and you don't face the insecurity, a lot of people pretend they don't have insecurities. I'm telling you, the person who pretends they're good with money never faces the truth, and they're not going to go and master money. I have a financial spreadsheet that I created after that painful time landscaping. And then there was another time after that where I helped her move furniture for another $100. And now, after that pain of realizing how far we'd come and how we're still not doing well financially, facing the pain of that, the insecurity of that, went, okay, back to the drawing board. Now Kevin has a financial spreadsheet, and so do I, where we have gross revenue, total expenses, and net revenue, and we track every single day. We know, let me rephrase that. Kevin tracks every single day.
I was going to call you out.
I check in weekly with my finances.
I was going to call you out if I had to.
But we know our numbers right now. We could tell you our gross revenue. We're not going to publicly, but we could tell you our gross revenue. We could tell you our expenses, and we could tell you our net income. There's a lot of people out there that can't because maybe they never faced the insecurity of the fact that, you know what, maybe we're not that great at finance.
I was not very good at it.
Maybe we need to get better at finance because this is the problem. So,
well, I think sometimes you got to get specific. It's like, what are you insecure? Okay, I'm not making enough money. Okay, what do we do? Do we go rent a Ferrari and take pictures, or do we go, listen to Sell or Be Sold, or listen to Money Master the Game, or Rich Dad Poor Dad? I do. It's at the end of the day, it's what you do with it. It's what you do with it. Some of the most successful people in the world were also the most insecure. Like Brendan Burchard tells the story of, was it Brendan Burchard? Who literally, his girlfriend at the time was literally sleeping under his bills.
Yep.
Like what a
And that
visual.
was a turning point for him.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to decide. I am comfortable saying this. Every single one of us has an insecurity. At least one. No matter who we are, no matter where we are, no matter how good we are, tall, short, good-looking, strong, weak, whatever. It's about what we're going to do with it. What do you want to do with that insecurity, and what's your why power for doing it? Like, what would be worth it for you to become a speaker? Maybe to change one life because you needed somebody to speak to you, right? Maybe that's what it is for you. Or you have a wedding, so you're ready to get over your insecurity of walking into the gym and not knowing what you're doing, right? So you want to get fit. That's your why power. At the end of the day, if you don't have the necessity, it's going to be very hard to get over the insecurity. Create the necessity.
Imagine if you did have a wedding this summer and you were insecure about looking not fit in your wedding dress. That's okay. Let's not make that wrong, right? I'm insecure about being on the beach this summer. I'm not at my best, honestly. It is what it is. What am I going to do about it? It's going to work. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to get my fitness back in order. I was a fitness coach before this. Now I've been all in on business, and it's definitely taken a hit on my health. I feel like I look in reasonable shape, but it's not my best, okay? Everyone has insecurities. Choose them consciously, and choose what you do about them consciously, and your whole life will become miraculous. It's going to drive you. It's absolutely going to drive you. Kevin got way better at fitness when he was scared to be on stage and not be lean enough. Yeah. He mastered fitness to a way greater extent. It drives human beings. You just have to make sure it'll either keep you stuck or it'll drive you to success. You got to choose that second one. I don't know if there's a third option.
I don't think there is.